He was born the strongest swordsman. He was born with the ability to see through others' weaknesses. No one could keep pace with him. Not even time itself could catch up. Fate was the only opponent he ever lost to. Regret was the formidable enemy he couldn't vanquish with all his might. In the memories of demons, he was a terror that couldn't be erased for hundreds of years. In the legends of demon slayers, he was a deity no one had ever come close to. This episode tells his story. In Demon Slayer, the blazing sun hanging above the stars and moon, Yoriichi Tsugikuni was born during the Warring States period into a samurai family. In that era, twins were considered an ill omen, as they would cause succession disputes, and the younger brother Yoriichi, born with mysterious marks on his forehead, was seen by his father as the source of calamity. Had his mother not fought desperately to stop it, Yoriichi would likely have been killed by his father on the day of his birth. Yoriichi, who kept his life, was made to promise he would enter a temple at age 10, so that misfortune could be kept away from the Tsugikuni family, and so that his brother Michikatsu Tsugikuni could smoothly inherit the family. Fortunately, his mother and brother were gentle people. This gave Yoriichi a bit of warmth in this cold mansion, because he was silent and quiet from birth. The family once thought Yoriichi had a hearing impairment. His devout mother prayed to the sun god, hoping the deity would illuminate Yoriichi's deaf ears. She even specially made earring-shaped amulets for Yoriichi to wear. His brother Michikatsu, the heir, defied his father's prohibition, coming daily to Yoriichi's dwelling, a room only 3 tatami mats in size, to keep this silent brother company. Even after being discovered by his father, and facing inevitable beatings and confinement, his brother still secretly carved a bamboo flute by hand, and gave it to Yoriichi. If you need help, blow this flute. This bamboo flute, your brother will come to help you no matter where he is. So don't worry about anything. Moved by his brother's gentleness, Yoriichi spoke for the first time at age 7. If brother's dream is to become the world's strongest warrior, then I shall become the second strongest warrior. At that moment, practicing swordsmanship with his father's retainer, brother Michikatsu was shocked. The bamboo sword fell from his hands. However, after a few simple pointers from this warrior, Yoriichi easily defeated and knocked out this teacher. But showing his talent, Yoriichi felt no joy in victory. On the contrary, peace-loving, he discovered he actually disliked the sensation of swords harming people. After his brother Michikatsu's persistent questioning, Yoriichi could only explain how he defeated his teacher. It turned out Yoriichi saw a world different from everyone else. Muscle contractions, blood flow, breathing rhythm, even the beating of organs. Yoriichi could see everything. This is why Yoriichi had been silent since birth, unaware that he was different from others. Yoriichi had actually been trying hard to adapt to this world. Of course, at this moment, Yoriichi hadn't realized that what he was telling, this perception called the transparent world in his eyes, his aversion to swordsmanship, had quietly ignited in his brother Michikatsu's heart the flames of jealousy. Naturally, his brother didn't tell his younger brother the fact that he was different. Not long after, with his mother's passing, considering himself an ill-mannered child, Yoriichi decided to leave the Tsugikuni family. The night before departure, Yoriichi knocked on the door of his only relative in the world, his brother Michikatsu, to say goodbye. I will regard this bamboo flute as brother himself. Even separated by countless mountains and rivers, I will practice diligently. I will never be discouraged by loneliness. After leaving these words, Yoriichi waved to his brother with a smile, and left the mansion called Tsugikuni. Leaving home for the first time, Yoriichi ran aimlessly, confined by high walls since birth. Yoriichi finally stood under this boundless starry sky. Run to your heart's content, a voice rang in Yoriichi's heart. After running for a day and night, Yoriichi stopped in front of a field at the foot of a mountain. A girl was holding a wooden bucket, standing alone in the middle of a golden rice field. What are you doing? Yoriichi asked, catching tadpoles. The girl said. Yoriichi tilted his head. Why catch tadpoles? Because the plague killed my family. I'm lonely alone, so I want to catch some tadpoles to keep at home. After speaking, the girl started moving, putting tadpoles one by one into her wooden bucket. As the sky darkened, the girl's movements became slower. Finally, the girl began releasing the collected tadpoles back into the rice field. Don't you want to take them home anymore? Yoriichi, who had been standing quietly watching, asked. Yeah, if forced to leave their families, these children would be very pitiful, like two stars that had drifted for a long time. Finally, under the same night sky, they discovered each other's light. He saw the loneliness in the girl's expression. Behind her gentle voice was the same loneliness as his. Then, I'll go home with you, Yoriichi said, looking into those eyes like obsidian. And this was Yoriichi's first meeting with his wife Yuta. After bringing Yoriichi home, the two children began living together. Yuta was a girl who talked from morning to night. Thanks to her, Yoriichi finally realized that the world in his eyes was so vastly different from others. According to Yuta, there seemed to be no one else. In this world who could see through living beings' bodies. Only at this moment did Yoriichi understand, since his birth, where the sense of alienation that had always accompanied him came from. Like a kite with a broken string, even his gentle mother and brother had never held the broken string as tightly as Yuta. That same loneliness became the intention to journey together. After living together for 10 years, Yoriichi and Yuta became husband and wife. These 10 years were peaceful and happy. No achievements, no struggles. The peach blossoms outside bloomed every year. The cooking smoke rose daily. Soon Yoriichi and Yuta would welcome their first child. As the due date approached, Yoriichi planned to go down the mountain early to find a midwife. But halfway there, an old man sitting by the roadside caught Yoriichi's attention. After inquiring, he learned the old man's son was gravely injured in war. Rushing to reach his dying son, the old man, despite his heart condition, crossed mountains, and finally collapsed under this tree because 3 more mountains needed crossing. Kind-hearted by nature, Yoriichi ultimately carried the old man to his son's military camp. The old man was able to see his son one last time. Seeing the sky darken, Yoriichi reluctantly decided to find a midwife tomorrow instead. Worried about his wife near her due date alone at home, and the inconvenience, Yoriichi ran home quickly. But when he hastily pushed open the door, the air wasn't filled with the fragrance of rice porridge, but with suffocating blood and coldness. The scene before him struck like a nightmare. His wife Yuta lay quietly in a pool of blood. Their unborn child in her belly had long lost its breath. Crimson blood slowly spread from beneath her, soaking through the floor of this already small room. In that instant, Yoriichi's chest felt pierced by a blade. His breathing suddenly froze. With his transparent world, what he could see now was no longer weaknesses and flaws, but unchangeable truth and finality. He looked on blankly, unable to understand, unwilling to believe that his life's treasure could be so easily trampled by others. As if the entire world collapsed at this moment, leaving only irretrievable silence and darkness. Yoriichi knelt there, holding his wife and child's remains for 10 whole days, until a swordsman following demon tracks came and urged him to bury his wife and child. Only then did Yoriichi come to his senses. These 10 years of peaceful life made Yoriichi, born different, think he could live like an ordinary person. In a small house, sleeping side by side with his wife and child. Every morning, sunlight through the paper window. Opening his eyes to see his loved one's face. Reaching out to gently embrace her and the child. However, even such a small dream, because demons existed in this beautiful world, could not be realized. So Yoriichi picked up the sword he hated in childhood, left this house full of warmth and memories, and became a demon slayer. Joining the Demon Slayer Corps, Yoriichi learned these swordsmen had fought demons for over 100 years, helpless against demons' superhuman powers. Every encounter resulted in heavy casualties. Without strong will, this legacy would have been slaughtered by demons long ago. However, soon the gap between demon slayers and demons narrowed, then reversed. Upon discovering that among these swordsmen, not one had mastered breathing techniques, Yoriichi taught everything, not only sharing his experience, but based on each person's strengths and abilities, he guided them to develop breathing styles, more suited to themselves. Gradually among the demon slayers called Hashira, the excellent swordsman, based on Yoriichi's sun breathing, fused this breathing method with their original wind flame, water, thunder, and stone elemental sword techniques. The 5 major breathing styles were born. The emergence of breathing-based swordsmanship gave the demon slayers a tremendous boost in combat power. The demon slayers began with overwhelming momentum to sweep through villages invaded by demons. Strong will finally brought the dawn they hadn't glimpsed in hundreds of years. Eventually, Yoriichi found the source of everything, the progenitor of demons. The moment their eyes met, Yoriichi clearly realized why he was different from everyone. If fate is a god's arrangement for each person, then he was destined to be born to defeat the demon king before him. Into this world, the man before him radiated violent vitality, like lava erupting from a volcano, attempting to devour everything around with terrifying heat. I'm no longer interested in swordsmen who can use breathing techniques. This was the first sentence when they met. At this time, Yoriichi didn't know. A few days earlier, his brother Michikatsu Tsugikuni had drunk the demon king's blood out of desire for eternal life. So Yoriichi just felt the demon king said something inexplicable. Then the opponent launched an attack. The demon king's speed and attack range were astonishing. His attack methods also differed from humans. Even a scratch could be fatal. This was the first time since birth Yoriichi felt such a threat. As Yoriichi fought the demon king, Yoriichi gradually saw inside the demon king 7 hearts and 5 brains. This is why no one could deal with this monster for hundreds of years. But the blazing sun born to be was destined to dispel the world's long night, as if fated. At this moment, Yoriichi completed his sword technique. All sun breathing sword moves became an endless stream of fire. the crimson under tremendous force, the blade like the blazing sun, erupting, heat waves rolling, burning away all the negative energy between heaven and earth. The continuous sword moves cut through all the Demon King's vital points in just an instant. This technique that turns the blade red is called Bright Red Blade, triggered by the swordsman's tremendous force. It can continuously burn demon wounds, like the sun, preventing regeneration. Wrong about his defeat, the Demon King used his severed arms to barely support his severed head. What do you take life for? This was the only thing Yoriichi said to the Demon King. Also the one thing Yoriichi had to ask no matter what. Countless swordsmen died by his hand. Countless families torn apart. Beloved relatives murdered. Futures that should have continued. Stripped away. In Yoriichi's eyes, the Demon King before him was not a monster, but a despicable existence trampling everything in the world with selfishness and greed. Demon King Muzan didn't respond. His bulging veins and bloodshot eyes, mixed with anger and fear. Yoriichi didn't get an answer. Perhaps the opponent didn't even care to hear Yoriichi's question. Strangely, the woman beside Muzan, in this situation, had no intention of rescuing her companion. She just stared intently, a flickering light of hope in her eyes, making Yoriichi unwilling to deal with her. However, when Yoriichi stepped forward, preparing to give Muzan the final fatal blow, seemingly determined, Muzan gritted his teeth. The next instant, Muzan's body suddenly exploded, shattering into nearly 1,800 small pieces of flesh. Yoriichi, relying on instinctive reaction, immediately cut down over 1,500 pieces. However, some pieces too small managed to escape by chance. This inhuman escape method left Yoriichi standing frozen in place. The woman who had been beside Muzan suddenly knelt on the ground, letting out a mournful scream. However, the woman soon seemed surprised that she hadn't lost her life. In the subsequent conversation, the woman said she believed that after witnessing Yoriichi's powerful strength until he passed away, Muzan probably wouldn't easily appear in people's sight again. Yoriichi also told the woman, because Muzan was now experiencing unprecedented weakness, this might be why she could briefly be freed from Muzan's control. If taken advantage of, perhaps she could permanently escape Muzan's control. Due to the woman's knowledge of Muzan's habits, she was willing to help him continue the pursuit in the coming days. Until defeating Muzan, Yoriichi also learned that this woman with sad eyes was named Tamayo. The demon slayer comrades who came later told Yoriichi that his brother Michikatsu had become a demon, and Yoriichi was ultimately expelled from the demon slayer corps for failing to successfully kill Muzan, deliberately letting Tamayo go, and his brother becoming a demon. Since many demon slayers were of samurai origin, there were even voices calling for Yoriichi to commit seppuku. Thanks to the then 6-year-old demon slayer corps master helping Yoriichi out, Yoriichi was able to leave the demon slayers safely, self-righteous, sworn to slay Muzan. In the end, letting Muzan escape, his beloved wife and child killed, his respected brother becoming a demon, finally rescued by a 6-year-old child who just lost his father. If in the future more people lose their lives to demons, one more, because of Yoriichi, the pain of guilt would grow even more. Without a trace of Muzan, after leaving the demon slayer corps, Yoriichi wandered aimlessly through the mountains. Unknowingly, he returned to the house that held his memories with Yuta. At that moment, he encountered the Sumiyoshi family being attacked by a demon, the ancestor of Tanjiro Kamado, whom we all know. It turned out this place was a remote mountain. The house, uninhabited for years, had become dilapidated. The Sumiyoshi family, wandering here by chance, repaired it slightly, and settled down after being saved by Yoriichi, learning Sumiyoshi's wife was near childbirth. After such a fright, the child would likely be born tonight. So Yoriichi hurried down the mountain alone to fetch a midwife, and returned that night with surprising speed. The next day, Sumiyoshi's child was safely born. Yoriichi finally did for the Sumiyoshi family what he couldn't do for his own wife and child. It was that day he planted the seeds of friendship with this ordinary mountain family. And these seeds, planted quietly since the Warring States period, until the end of long years, bloomed at dawn. Of course, the blooming of these seeds is the wonderful journey of that boy named Tanjiro Kamado. Sumiyoshi and his wife were gentle and warm people. After getting to know this family, Yoriichi occasionally visited here, quiet and remote, yet revealing the warmth of human life. For Yoriichi, this was once the warmest place in his life. With no one to confide in, Yoriichi slowly told Sumiyoshi everything he had seen and heard about the cruelty and heartlessness of demons. Those memories mixed with blood and fire, stories of swordsmen's persistence and endless loss. Yoriichi always believed, since birth, he was a person who accomplished nothing. Considered a disaster by his father, the entire family saw him as misfortune, also a burden to his brother. His gentle brother, having to care for him, was always scolded by their father. Possessing these so-called transparent eyes, yet could only watch his mother suffer from illness until she passed. His beloved wife and child murdered by demons, he could only grieve and blame himself. Learning his brother, out of fear, was forced to drink the Demon King's blood. He still couldn't extend a helping hand. Clearly the gods gave him talents and powers beyond ordinary people, yet he failed to fulfill his duty to slay all demons. However, the gentle Sumiyoshi family never saw him this way. They always welcomed Yoriichi with smiles, inviting him to sit, handing him hot tea. Once, Sumiyoshi's wife, Sayako, coaxed and pleaded for Yoriichi to demonstrate his swordsmanship. Gentle Yoriichi was the type who, once someone smiled and asked, couldn't refuse. So Yoriichi slowly drew his blade, breathing like the tide, blade like fire. Every move revealed scorching heat. Sumiyoshi watched intently from the side, etching all of Yoriichi's movements into his mind. Sayako held the child, her eyes filled with wonder and joy, as if appreciating a marvelous performance. When Yoriichi finished, glancing at Sayako and the child's smiling faces, he couldn't help but lower his head slightly, not good with words. Yoriichi felt somewhat embarrassed by those smiles. Before parting, Yoriichi removed the earrings he had worn for years, the amulets his mother had made for him. He no longer needed protection. So he gave the earrings to Sumiyoshi, saying, "Until next time." But Sumiyoshi, receiving the earrings, felt an inexplicable sadness rise in his heart. As if this would be the last time seeing Yoriichi, "We will carry it on with the life you saved." Looking at Yoriichi's back, Sumiyoshi suddenly said, "You are not a person who accomplished nothing, and you must never think so. I swear to you, I will pass these amulets and your sun breathing to future generations." Yoriichi stopped, turning slightly, showing a long missed smile. Thank you. Perhaps even Yoriichi never imagined that this sun-breathing technique that all other swordsmen struggled to imitate would be learned by Sumiyoshi, this ordinary woodcutter. Through hundreds of years of inheritance, the 12 sword techniques Yoriichi refined in his lifetime were accurately passed down. In the blink of an eye, over 60 years passed. Yoriichi's life may have had many regrets and attachments, but there was one sword's entanglement yet uncut. Finally, under a blood moon's witness, knowing his time was near, Yoriichi still met his final attachment in this world. At this time, Yoriichi's body was already eroded by time, his back slightly bent, his white hair swaying in the wind. "How tragic, brother," Yoriichi slowly spoke, his voice hoarse and heavy, tears streaming down his cheeks, as if crossing these decades of time. Looking at his brother, that face already consumed by demon transformation, those 6 eyes, cold and strange, his once kind brother, had now fallen to this state. But Yoriichi naturally knew the person before him was no longer his brother. Michikatsu Tsugikuni, this demon named Kokushibo, was someone he, as long as he remained a demon slayer, must slay with "Here I come," a powerful aura, accompanied by sword moves the 6 eyes couldn't see through. In an instant, the opponent's throat spurted fresh blood. Kokushibo's terrified eyes seemed to understand that if Yoriichi's next strike came, his head would surely fall. But Yoriichi ultimately didn't strike that blow. He just stood there, supporting himself with his sword, slowly closing his eyes. Was it natural death, or unable to bear it in his heart? As his consciousness faded, Yoriichi didn't know, failed to protect wife and child, failed to save his brother, failed to fulfill his oath to slay all demons, possessing talents beyond anyone's reach, yet unable to change the loneliness fate wrote for him. This destined irony. Was this the duty the gods gave him? But the bamboo flute his brother carved by hand in his chest seemed still whispering of his mother's care, of his brother's attention, of his friend's encouragement, of the 10 years spent with his wife, of all the happiness and gentleness he experienced. Even if his entire life couldn't resist fate's arrangements, meeting them made his journey more than just loneliness and sorrow. In a daze, Yoriichi seemed to hear his brother Michikatsu asking him a question. "Yoriichi, aren't you worried our breathing techniques and swordsmanship won't be inherited? There doesn't even seem to be anyone who can match me. At this rate, before long, our refined sword techniques will be lost." Facing his brother's urgency, Yoriichi suddenly looked into the distance. "Brother, I don't think we're anything remarkable. All fireworks will fade in an instant. Children with talent far beyond us may be born into this world any day. I'm sure those who come after will reach the same realm as us." Yoriichi rarely showed a relaxed smile. "No need to worry. I think we just need to let things be. If the day our lives end truly comes, I believe accepting it calmly is the best choice for you and me."